What's going on, gamers? DBMgamer here, and today is the day before launch day. So I got a lot on my plate before I run to the store and grab my Ghost Edition from GameStop. So what I want to discuss today is swords, the patch notes, and the future. Now, ladies and gents, while we're discussing that, I want to show off the first piece of hate mail that I ever got in Destiny, and not even from a PvP match. You'll be surprised at how this video ends. But I'll keep this playing in the background while we discuss these topics. But before I can get into any of that, I've got to get to my shoutouts. My shoutouts is how I show appreciation back to the community that has gotten me this far. And my community grew quite a bit over here in the last couple of days, so I want to say thanks if you dropped a subscription. I really appreciate it. Now, having said that, I want to give shoutouts to Josh Rules Too Much, Daviana Morales, Damian Angel, Joel Monserrate, Inya Face 808 Jr., Chaz the Gamer, Connor Billcliffe, Ben Swan, Cody McQuaid, and Ricky Serafico. So guys, the news is out on the Sword of Crota, and the reason why I know the news is out, because, well, I actually helped get this piece of news out there. I actually gave the information to a really great website that I would love for you guys to check out, destinynews.net. And they took the piece of information, added it to an article, did a fantastic job on the article, and they shot a message over there to Facebook, and from there, a very large YouTuber, More Console, grabbed a hold of it and ran with it. And More Console was even nice enough to actually credit us for the find. So I gotta say, awesome job to him, but what he got of the story isn't the whole story. There's actually a little more to go along with this. Along with the Sword of Crota, it turns out there is only one Sword of Crota, so there'll only be one of these things to grab in a room, but it actually has a move list. How about that, guys? So here's the move list that we've got for it so far. You got simple quick attacks and simple hard attacks, and even 2-hit and 3-hit combos. But what you really want to do is that R1, R2 super move. I don't know what that's going to look like, but man, I can't wait to try it. Alright, now moving right along to the patch notes. One of the first things that I noticed they did was they did take the subclass lock out. This was something that I had reported a few videos ago that I seemed like they were going to take that feature out. Turns out I was right on that one. Now, another feature that's actually getting a nice buff is agility. It's now going to have more impact on movement speed. So that pretty much applies a lot to the hunter class. I want you to bear that in mind, that's the reason why the hunter is fixing to get a few little nerfs here and there. Now, since the hunter is getting a speed boost, they've got to kind of balance that. So how they're going to balance it is by giving a slight reduction to the grenades, but it's not all bad news. The Chain of Woe is actually getting a buff, so they're extending the time frame that you'll get to have to continue the Chain of Woe so you can keep your reload speed nice and fast. But one thing that they fixed on the hunter that seemed like it was going to be broken is that they're making blink cancel invisibility. I want you to think about that for a second. Could you imagine how broken it would be to go invisible and then blink from one part of the map to another small part of the map, and when you reappear, no one can actually see you, or at least you're tough to spot. So yeah, I think that would be a pretty broken feature. I'm kind of glad they're fixing that from the outset. Now moving along to the Warlock is also getting a small nerf here and there. The Nova Bomb is not going to linger quite as long as it used to. It's getting a reduction from 5 seconds to 3.5 seconds. And the grenade is also getting a small nerf, just like the hunter did. But it's not all bad news. The flame shield ability for the Sunsinger will now trigger on just simple damage to an enemy. Before, the way that it was set up is that you were going to have to kill your enemy. All you gotta do is just get a little bit of damage in there, and then you'll be able to trigger it. And if that wasn't enough, now the shield will also have a little bit of an overshield to go along with it. Now moving along to the Titan. Now I've said nerf, nerf, nerf quite a bit. The Titan is not getting a nerf, guys. He's getting a buff. His shoulder charge is now going to have arc damage tagged onto it. And the big thing, the Titan's grenade is getting a 66% buff. I'm like, wow, man, that's really impressive. To offset that, now his flashbangs won't affect the ultra class type enemies. So bear that in mind if you throw that at a guy with a yellow health bar. Now I'm just going to read off the highlights of what I saw on the patch notes. Okay, high caliber rounds are going to get a buff. A big one, 67% buff. So if you get a chance to get your hands on anything that has high caliber rounds in it, man, abuse the hell out of it. It's gonna be strong. Now, the flip side of that, assault rifles are getting a nerf, but it's only a 7% nerf. The 7% is very, very minor reduction, especially when you consider damage per bullet. They're basing it on the individual bullet. So if you get something with a decent rate of fire, you're almost not even going to notice this nerf. Now, the reason why the assault rifles are getting a slight nerf is because they really owned in PvP. So to offset that, whereas the assault rifle is getting a nerf, everything else looks like it's getting a buff. Pulse rifles are getting a slight buff on their damage, their stability, and their rate of fire. Scout rifles are getting a minor damage buff. And hand cannons, oh my goodness. Hand cannons are getting their zoom increased by 20%. Their damage is getting buffed by anywhere between 4 to 15%. The magazine size is getting a buff from anywhere from 8 to 20%. So with all these little modifications, I really am interested to get my hands back on a hand cannon. Now, sticking with the theme of PvP, one of the big complaints that came from the beta was the Cabal Interceptor. So what they're going to do is reduce the rate of fire from 1 to about 1.6 seconds per shot. So it's going to take about a half second longer than it did from what you may remember. As well as the rocket damage blast radius is getting a slight reduction from 7 meters to 6 meters. As well as the shape of the cone is getting a small shrink to a 40% reduction. And if that wasn't enough, the damage falloff curves are going to make it so that it's less effective at long ranges. But Bungie, still not quite content with doing all that to the Interceptor, they've also managed to nerf the number of them that will be on the map. From now forward, on the 2 maps that actually feature the Interceptor, which are First Light and now Bastion, are going to be reduced to 1. Now, a very key patch note that you want to pay very close attention to is what they did to Blind Watch. I'm not making that up, guys. That is in the patch notes. I tell you what, Bungie's kind of funny, and they weren't done with the jokes there either. Strikes are now going to award increasingly more Vanguard marks at higher levels, and strikes are now going to award significantly better gear at lower levels. And as far as the raids are going to be condensed to just 2 difficulty levels in order to get straight to the punishment, as they like to put it. And the last one being the Flawless Raider Achievement Trophy. They cut it out, they put it in, they cut it out, they put it in, and said they were tired of messing with it. Now moving along to what they're doing with the worlds in the patrol mode, which is also known as the Explore mode. It's also going to award increased Vanguard reputation, but won't give you any Vanguard marks any longer. And treasure chests. Treasure chests they're doing something really unusual with them. The treasure chest glimmer drop rate is going to be reduced, but they added materials to the loot table. So this actually isn't a bad thing. What you can do is take your materials back up to the tower and trade it in for some good stuff. And if that wasn't enough, now treasure chests are going to have a small chance to award huge drops of additional glimmer materials, engrams, and consumables. Now what I want to discuss is the future. We spent a lot of time waiting for Destiny, and I know we're all chomping at the bit to get to it. But guys, what I really want you to do is to stop and smell the roses with this game. Bungie spent a lot of time and put a lot of detail everywhere throughout the game. If you watched any of my previous videos, you can see how much lore and story that they've packed into this game. It's everywhere in this game. So what I really would like for you to do is just stop and, take the time to actually really enjoy your story. Because I'm going to tell you, now once you have the game in your hands, no one can take your destiny away from you. Because our destiny is today. Well, alright guys, that's all I have for today. If you like this type of content, feel free to drop a like or a comment. Or if you just want to see more, hit that subscribe button. But as always guys, have a good one.